I'm going to go ahead and call the study session to order. First up, we have public comment period. If anybody has a public comment, I'm going to invite them up to the podium. If you could state your name, address. Mr. Morgan?
Thank you. My name is Bill Morgan, 201 Spruce Street. I have two concerns. One is a blight issue. We have ordinances for the blight around our community. Doesn't seem to be getting done. I have 3 properties that I've been keeping an eye on all summer long, actually about 2 years now. Let's see, what is it? James Street, Delano Street, and Eastern Avenue. Some progress on some of them, but on 2 of them, no. I've talked to Jay. I've talked to Officer Morgan. Imagine that. But anyways, nothing seems to get done. We all want to be Mr. Good Guy. We've got to put our foot down, otherwise it's just going to continue. The other issue I have is on the Historical Commission. I understand that they have asked to break up because their reasoning was there are places where they were allowed to use vinyl siding, other places they weren't. They're the ones doing the decision. So if that's their reasoning for it, it's totally ridiculous. I don't think it should be a reason to disassemble or whatever they're calling it. So please look that over. And it's, the Historical Commission is put there for one reason, and that's to protect the history of our community. If it's taken and someone has allowed them to put siding on that wasn't to the historical thing, that's up to them, and that is on their watch. Not on anybody else's, but on theirs. It's their fault it's there. I thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move down to an introduction of our new Deputy City Clerk, Michaela Kleehammer.
All right, real quick, I put this on the agenda just so council can put a name with a face. Michaela started last Monday.
Yep.
So we are 2 Mondays ago.
I started the 13th.
13th, yeah. So, close enough. Recent graduate of Western Michigan University. We're excited. She's hit the ground running, taking care of the election stuff, getting absentee ballots out, so forth. We can use the next few minutes if council has any questions or Michaela wants to add anything, we can go that route, but we just want to do the introduction here. The goal is to promote her to city clerk, as I mentioned to council when we started this process a couple months ago.
So Joel, just to clarify, I know that we had discussed that you would remain city clerk and that she would be the deputy clerk. Are we looking to maybe change that back to how we've had it recently?
Yeah. So I'm interim right now, is what council did, and I'm going to stay interim for the next several months until Michaela gets, her running legs going, and then, I'd look to making the change to recommend that you appoint her as city clerk in the near future. We'd like to get through the election in November.
Sounds good, thank you. Well, welcome, Michaela. Is there anything that you would like to add to Joel's introduction?
Not really. I look forward to working with you guys.
Thank you. Council, did you have any questions for Michaela? Not to put her on the spot, but putting her on the spot. No, welcome. All right, I share that sentiment. Welcome, and thank you for being here. Okay, next up, we've got a roundtable discussion amongst council members. Council, is there anything that we would like to bring forward for a discussion tonight? I know, Roger, you mentioned that you have an issue with the meeting next month occurring on a Tuesday.
I do. I don't know if you guys have a conflict, but I'm going to see if I can.
Did anyone else have any problems with that? That is how we had kind of changed our meeting schedule when they went to mirror the county's holiday schedule. And we're going to push that out to the next Tuesday. Nobody else has any problems? Okay. I'd actually written down to bring that up at roundtable, but then saw it was on the agenda, so thanks for taking care of that. Anybody else have anything to discuss? No? I mentioned to Teresa that I will be absent the last meeting in October. So I wanted to give Teresa a heads up about that so she could prepare.
So make the agenda short and easy, please.
I'm going to make it very long. Lots of closed sessions.
Lots of
Multiple ones,
public
Teresa.
hearings. Yeah, tonight is going to be fun. I was already like, oh my gosh, this is going to kind of be a test of, yeah. All right. Staff, did you have anything to bring to council that you want to update us on or anything?
I guess real quick, just so I don't forget about it, at your Tuesday meeting, October 12th, the next one, I am hosting a open house for Jim Richardson. He's been our constable for the past 20 years. He chose not to run again. So we're just gonna have some lemonade, juice, punch, and some cookies in the lobby from 4:30 to 5:30. I've already worked with Gary at the paper to get that notice out. Parker will be, posting it on our Facebook to let people know if they want to come in and say, thanks, Jim, for being constable for 20 years. They can do that. That's going to be the Tuesday, October 12th, so 4:30 to 5:30, right before our meeting. I figured that'd be the easiest way for us to do it. He stopped in today. I wrote it down on a Post-it note for him. Tammy Gorby encouraged him to put it on his refrigerator or have his wife put it on his refrigerator, so he's looking forward to it.
If I may, just a quick question. Mr. Morgan, you're going to stick around for the regular council meeting where we actually discuss the HDC? Or are you going to stick around for the regular council meeting where the HDC is discussed, or should we discuss that now?
Going to the end of the meeting or not?
It's kind of at the end, yes, mid-ish. So,
No, I would not be here for that.
okay, so then just a real quick, because I only caught a few things, that the reason that this has been brought up is because vinyl windows have been approved. I mean, that's a pretty generalized way of saying how this came about. I've been on HDC for, I don't remember the appointments, in January?
Yeah, it was close after.
So 9 months-ish, in addition to almost 12 years of being on council. Throughout those 12 years, there have been, I would say, numerous approvals that allowed vinyl, whatever, solar panels recently. So I think the issue that has been brought up throughout the community is that there isn't actually any sort of cohesiveness with what's approved or allowed. So if there isn't cohesiveness, and each time there's a new council or a new board or new whatever, and those rules can't be followed,
My statement is those rules can be followed. It's up to that commission to follow those rules. They are not following them.
it has not.
So that has nothing to do with this, that, or the other thing. It's, they have rules to follow, they need to follow those rules. They have not followed them. It's on them, it's not on the rest of them.
So just in my, and I wasn't even, I think I was probably still in high school when this place was approved, if not just a few years after graduating. 234 Marshall Street, which is, it was a building that was moved from up by the hospital, I believe. Scott, I can't think of his last name.
Taylor.
Scott Taylor's building, yes. There's a plaque on that building. It's a historical home. However, the addition that was added mirrors the historical addition, which goes against the preservation rules.
When did that happen?
In the 90s, I'm gathering.
And who did that?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, obviously, I wasn't.
It was approved by the Historic District.
There you go.
Can,
But I'm just saying, it's on them. It's
Right.
not
Well, but it's, but
what's the
But-
I think this goes beyond the Historic District Commission rules or historic preservation. It is, what is this community looking for with an HDC? I know, Bill, you had referenced history. I don't think anybody wants to wipe out history, but it is providing, I mean, taking a look at this, we need to step back because, so my first year on council, just to give you some background, I was on HDC. And in my time on there, I can talk about various houses that were not approved to put in vinyl windows, to replace the siding, to take off the, that big, large aluminum siding. And they were told no, because if they took off the siding and there was wood siding under there to the historic preservation, they would have to replace that wood siding. That family decided to not move forward with anything because they did not have the funds to put wood siding on. Let me finish, Bill, just a minute. And so looking at that house, I can tell you, in my mind, I don't see any historic significance with that style house. And so what are we trying to preserve here? And it's the house coming down Marshall Street that I call the poop brown house now, because what they did is they painted it brown because they were denied everything. And then I don't think that's attractive. And so I'm like, what are we really doing with an HDC commission? There's other houses where we were told, the applicants were told no. And I know one that's over off of River Street. It needs to be condemned at this point. It is in such bad shape. So I really feel like the people who are going to preserve their homes with wood windows for wood windows, wood siding for wood siding, they're going to do it whether we have an HDC or not. And at this point, I feel we're hindering people who are in homes that aren't historically, what value are they adding? And none of us up here can answer that, and nobody on HDC is able to answer that. So that's why I see, and I know, Dave, you probably have more to say too, that's where I think what the ask is to, let's take a step back, and what are we doing with the HDC? It's very, very large. I don't know if you've ever read through it. Oh my God, Bill, you need to pull it up. I was amazed there was a broad stroke done, and just, this whole neighborhood will be considered historic. And I think we need to take a step back and maybe bring it down and look at what is making a home historic compared to the house next door.
I believe it's over 400 properties.
420.
Talking about one thing, in the historical district, there are homes within our historical district that are not historic. I'll agree with you 100%. That's what needs to be addressed, not the dissolving of a whole commission. because of that. You know, they need to go through within that historical district and say, okay, this is a historic home, that one is not. My home in a historical district would not be a historical home.
All homes that are 50 years or older at this point are part of a historical district. That's the basis for the historical district.
There's the historical part about it. I guess I don't know exactly what it is, but
In,
it needs to be addressed by the people within the commission, not so much everybody else.
Well, and can we talk about too, the survey that was sent out? And that survey was sent out, I believe, just to the people that were in the Historic District Commission, or in the Historic District area.
The community survey?
Yeah.
That was sent for everyone to do, but then there was a separate section for anyone that
them.
was in a historic.
And I don't recall the exact wording or responses, but I don't know that we got an overwhelming response that we needed an H. Is that,
Yeah, I would say you're generally correct. I think, Dave Redding followed you and preceded. And Dave, when he was doing his canvassing, if that's what it's called when you go to collect signatures,
Yep.
talked to a lot of people in the historic district on Marshall.
yeah, and I was surprised how many stories went in this fashion. I went to the HDC to make improvements on my home. I was denied the right to make those improvements. I couldn't afford to do the things they wanted to do, so I gave up, and now I'm gonna leave. And then I see these homes descend. So Bill, it's not really about the structure, it's about the results we get. And at some point, we need to take responsibility for those.
Buying a home in a historical district,
Yep.
they know that they have certain rules that they must contend with.
Not always.
not always,
When they
yeah.
buy it, then
They buy homes that already have vinyl siding and vinyl windows. Why would they think that? It's just looking at the reality of the situation. There's an ideal you have that the historical district would force every homeowner to do things the way they want them to,
to other communities.
and we can't afford that.
Commissions.
Other communities that have historic districts have small historic districts that are focused, and they'll take homeowners to court when they violate rules. I think if we started taking every homeowner to court who's in violation of our historic district rules, we'd quickly run out of money.
We don't put our foot down and take care of stuff.
We don't have
Okay.
the funding or the ability to.
Everybody's buddies. That doesn't work.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything about the HDC
My only comment is, when you buy a house, it's not really disclosed unless you really ask. My neighbor next door bought their house, and I informed them, you know you're in the historic district. They're like, what? Because they were talking about changing the siding. And I said, well, once you take that aluminum siding off, if there's wood there, they're gonna make you restore it. So I suggest if you can't afford that, you look at repainting it if you want a different color, or look into the real cost of it. But he was not aware he was in historic. It's not like the realtor, some realtors are good about it, and they'll tell you this is a historic district, explain to you what that means. Some realtors aren't, and it's just, hey, I bought the house. At closing, they don't really have to disclose it. As far as I know, there's no law to disclose it.
No, I even became aware of a realtor in the last couple of weeks who, he discourages people. He'll tell them, let's move a block over because then that's not
It's
historic.
mostly, I think we're looking, when it's being brought up, is looking at focusing the district on the actual properties that need historic preservation. The other thing is there's no real tax incentive currently to being in a historic district. You don't get property taxes money off. You don't get any state tax money off. And that was kind of the thing, is like, we're asking them for a big ask to preserve it historically, but we're at the same time saying, you just got to do it because we said you got to do it.
It's funny you bring up the incentives. There's actually still a website you can access that shows that there were $1,000 paint grants. There's an Allegan downtown facade improvement program, $1,000 paint grants, $500 sign grants, up to $15,000 in low-interest loans for painting improvements and repairs. DDA funding up to 80% of the cost of professional design assistance. I don't know that any of those programs are in place anymore. There's Michigan Historic Preservation tax credits that were available when it was created. I think there were real financial incentives and a desire to help people do better to preserve their homes when this was created. And I think there was a lot of good work put into preserving the story of these homes. But I think when we look at the reality of the results today, you mentioned blight earlier. I see plenty of blight on Marshall Street, and almost every house on Marshall Street is in the historic district. So at some point, we've got to accept that the results just aren't there.
So you think by disbanding the historical commission, you're gonna get rid of all that? No, you're not. Guaranteed, you're gonna ruin the historical part and you're not gonna cure a problem.
I think it was to look at the survey again, is what we're really talking about, is we're not saying, oh, just disband 100%. You could always survey it and say, we're gonna keep this part of the district or not. And that's kind of what the beginning of this conversation is where do we wanna take it? Do we wanna take it all the way that direction or not?
And the motion from HDC was for council to direct staff to look at disbanding. I mean, I can speak personally. My home, I've always assumed was historical. I was told by an HDC member in the past who lives across the street that it was historical. And then I noticed on our last survey from the 80s that it wasn't listed. So is it not? I have 3 different types of windows in my home. I have vertical siding over wood siding. And I can be frank, I'm not in a position to completely redo any wood siding that I find underneath that house. So I've got to find out if my home is even in the HDC before I can do anything with windows, which are extremely inefficient right now at my house with wood paned windows. And though I also have vinyl and aluminum. So, I mean, I've got a mishmash. But like I said, on one hand, it's considered historic, and a different list, it's not. So I have no idea. But I know that we'll be discussing this a bit later, so I appreciate your feedback and everybody's discussion over that. Teresa, Roger, did you have anything to add?
I don't know that I'm adding anything, but I'll say something. So I think Peter brought up a point, is that having realtors who disclose that the houses are in the HDC and explain what that means. Because I think a lot of people don't understand. They go, oh, isn't that quaint? I'm in the historic district, and don't understand how it limits or, and the costs that could be involved. And I do, and I don't know about all the houses on Marshall, disbanding the HDC might not help those. But there are houses, to your point, that aren't being updated because they can't afford to do it the way the historic district would want them to do it. Whereas if it was removed, they could probably make improvements to their homes and relieve some of the blight without having to have monumental costs of doing it in a historical way.
Thanks, Roger. Teresa, anything from you?
Yeah, I don't know that dismantling or doing away with the historic district. I think we need to have some type of better control of it. like you said, redo our historic district, like the zoning of it, what parts are really historic and what are not. But then, on the other hand, I don't like the idea that we have, 7, 9 people making that decision. So, without guidelines on what to do. So,
Can I ask a question?
I do have,
sorry.
later on in the program, or in the agenda for the final meeting, the regular meeting. Program. We are
Turn
a
in your
show.
program.
No, there is a lady who is very interested in the historic district. She actually works for the county, and she bought her house knowing it was in the historic district, and she was so excited because she was going to be part of the historic district. So, but then she got shot down to do some stuff to it. So
So she didn't understand
have
what
that
the
group of-
historic district was.
Exactly, other than she thought it was very prestige to be part of the historic district of a little town, so.
I want to clarify that the proposal that I had made was not to disband the historic district altogether, but to remove all the restrictions, make it just about demolition ordinance, that you can't tear down a historic home. So the historic district would still be there in that proposal. It would still exist, you could still have the sign, you could still say you're in the historic district, but then we're not worried about vinyl windows, we're not worried about vinyl siding. And I understand that it can functionally serve in the same way of now we don't have rules to restrict things, but it allows a space where we could talk about what rules might make sense. Do we want to then come back and start to put in rules about, well, the form of the house is important, or do we want to start looking at programs that might come up in the future and say, oh, well, if we put this restriction in, these houses would then qualify for this program. It allows us a little more flexibility. But I just wanted to be clear that in my proposal, it was, let's remove the restrictions that we're not enforcing, we're not able to enforce. And rather than have homeowners either move forward with their own repairs without getting approval, which I see frequently, or homeowners trying to move forward with repairs and getting denied. Let's let those things move forward now. And people who preserve their homes today, they can still do that.
Rachel, did you kind of want to give us an idea of, okay.
Good. So, yeah, it was, and I think Dave and I are on the same page. We vary slightly in our mode of thinking. I'm a fan of, again, and I'll say it because I've said it with water utilities, I've said it with everything, fair and equitable treatment of all. So, if you have one house that can have vinyl and the next person who applies doesn't get it, why? Why are we doing that? So if we can't have an actual answer, and I look at it in the sense of being sued, to me, that is discriminatory behavior. And so to avoid that, nix the rules, and I'm fine with, if somebody wants to tear down a house, they have to get approval, but that's what happens currently with any home. A permit, I should say, not approval. Let me clarify. Big difference. Yeah, I guess. But nonetheless, so that was why at the council meeting, and I feel like it was at the beginning of September, right after Labor Day. My September's a blur. Nonetheless, that I made the motion which was supported and unanimously approved through HDC to disestablish the districts and the commission. I don't think that a board, this board and HDC, however the HDC was created in the past, can pick and choose which properties have more historical value than others without it becoming personal, or that's my neighborhood and I want to keep it looking a certain way. I don't know how you do that. And I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to choose for downtown which buildings I think have more historical significance than others. I don't want to do that. And I don't really think anybody here should be doing that,
But there are
period.
cities who do that.
Sure, we don't have to be that one. And I understand it's comfortable and that's how it's been, but it hasn't, the majority of folks are not on board with the way this HDC has operated for years. Not 12 years, 15, 20. It's been the 80s.
So can I ask, it sounds like it's not been running well. Do you think those people would be on board if it was running well? Or is it just in general
I
that,
think the folks who created the rules to make it run poorly are the ones still around wanting it to run the way it is.
I think if there were.
I say that frankly.
Yeah, I think if there were financial incentives, I think if there was support to do work, if homeowners felt like they got benefit from it, I think there would be support. But without that, I don't think there is. I think there's an opportunity too to send a letter to every homeowner in the historic district and invite them in for the conversation. If we're serious about what the historic district homeowners feel, we should reach out proactively to them, not expect them to come in and read our agendas on the website, but reach out, send them a letter, say, hey, we're talking about this, we'd like your input. And we might be surprised what we hear from them.
420 homeowners versus 1, 2 speaking on behalf of who they think they're speaking on the behalf of.
And I'll just say, as far as incentives, like tax incentives, 420 houses offered tax incentives for repairs, takes a big chunk out of our property tax revenues. So, I mean, when you get into that, you're looking,
And just so you're clear, you don't have the right to reduce property taxes unless the state government says you have the right. And right now, I do not know of a state law that says you pay 16 mills, you pay 3 mills. There used to be a historic tax credit where you got a credit on the state taxes, state income tax you paid for your investment. So I just want to be clear on that. And there were all the programs Dave mentioned at one time probably were up and running. A lot of them were just focused on downtown improvements though.
I mean,
Yeah, in the
it's a
DDA
nice
district.
time to own a house.
Well, there's a downtown historic district that I
Yeah,
think,
the
because
old-
I mean, I can direct it to you. It's if you go to the History of Allegan Wikipedia, down at the bottom, there's a link that's historic preservation, and there's incentives. There's the Michigan Historic Preservation, the Federal Historic Preservation, and then these programs for the city.
Yeah, we used to pay for paint and facade, but the thing is, the rules do discriminate on property because we have to evaluate each property, literally in the rules, if they're high historic, medium, or low, and high was determined in the 1981 survey. So that's how our rules are actually set up, is we discriminate on what preservation level that property's supposed to get. It's established in the rules. So,
Is that based on taxes?
no, the high, medium, low is, when they did the survey, they identified certain properties and put an asterisk next to it in the survey, which ones were high historic value. And then as far as medium and low, the Historic Commission has to determine that when they meet and approve something for.
And there was
if it's a-
very few that were high.
Yeah, there's very few that were high.
Per our last meeting, a a commissioner, who has been involved in this community for many years, stated that when this was created, or the survey was done, the idea was that if you include the majority of the properties, you can control the majority of the properties.
And that's where it's like, if it was more focused on ones that are actually historic, high significance, they actually have a historic significance to the community, or neighborhoods that have a historic significance to the community, it's a lot easier to say, the rule is wood, that's what the rule is, that's what the rule is. But when you have such a large district that was encompassing a lot of houses that aren't really historic or even built in historic, but you're in the neighborhood, now you're older than 50 years, now you're included. And it's like, well, what do we do for things that are 50 years old? What's that, 1970?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 72?
And I will,
It hurts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's creeping up. It's
Yeah.
Creeping up. So anything that's newer, is older than 72 currently that's in the district has to maintain that look of that 1972 house.
I'll share that I'm not familiar with any functional part of the HDC determination that includes, is it high contributing, medium contributing, or low contributing? They're all
It's
treated the same.
Literally in the rules.
No, I'm saying like functionally, when we get applications.
Yeah, it's not applied
They're
to
not
the way we
treated
make
any
this.
different.
Yeah, it's not applied
Yeah.
in the rules. If you read the rules and you come to council, go, hey, what is is it high, medium, or low? How are we going to evaluate this? So our rules literally say that in the establishment of the district. That's kind of my issue, is like it encompassed such a large swath of all the properties that it wasn't really looking at the most historically significant, like the downtown core, over here where Delano and that section. There's certain sections of town which you can tell just driving through is historic, and I would like them to be preserved. But at the same time, when I go up through Marshall neighborhood and I go through past some of those houses, I'm like, some of these houses are not, turn-of-the-century houses. These are 1950s, 60s, 70s. And it's like, what are we doing here if they're included in it? And I think it's time to do an evaluation on that, to look at what we should be doing, because it's just so big. It makes it hard to manage and hard to enforce equally, like you're saying, Rachel, enforce it equally across
But in the
everybody.
meantime, while you're examining that, you have to enforce the rules that are in place.
Of course, I've also always said just get rid of it completely, but, or get rid of certain districts.
I just want to go, sorry.
Go ahead,
I just want to go back to one thing like Teresa brought up about the applicant tonight. I mean, I think that was great. I mean, she was excited about being in the historic district, but she didn't understand what it was, and Roger touched on this as well. And I think what this community does is we blur historic societies with historic district commissions. And those two just, they're totally different. Historic Society is preserving history. Historic District Commission is preserving architecture, honestly.
It's the appearance of
yeah.
buildings. We
And it's
don't care what
architecture.
goes on the inside as long
Yep.
as the outside. And we approach buildings and people the same way. It's pretty sad. As long as it looks good, it's good.
So, I mean, whatever comes out of this, it needs to be explained and people educated on what it is we're doing, so that people, when they buy it, they know, hey, you bought this house and you're gonna tear off siding. Well, like Peter had talked about that house next to him, you're gonna tear off siding, there's wood, you know, you've gotta replace it. So,
Okay, well, thanks, everybody. Stay tuned for later on the program. Okay, if there's nothing else right now about that, we'll go ahead and move on down. Did anybody else have, before I move on down? No? Okay. So we'll go ahead and move to the discussion regarding a plan forward for the Griswold Auditorium. Staff?
All right, real quick, I'm going to kick this off and then hand it off to Parker. In your packet, you received a report and an attachment on staff's direction for the Griswold moving forward. One thing I will just remind council that in 19, we started ramping up outside uses at the Griswold. I mean, that was the first year we did a concert series that the city hosted. I know the community did a jazz series several years ago. But 2020 brought on COVID and everything just hit the brakes, and we used 2020 and the beginning part of 2021 to start asking questions at the staff level and with a few council members, you know, what should the Griswold really be? In the staff report, Parker highlighted a handful of things that she's going to go over, but we're hoping to get to more of a dialogue. And so I get stuck real quick saying, what do you want to see there? And immediate people jump to the exact act they want to see. You know, I want to see, you know, Penn and Teller, stuff like that. This document and our discussion is a much more higher level, broader kind of, you know, discussion. What direction do you want us to see this building go?
Magic is what you're saying.
Okay. With that, I'm going to give it off to Parker because he's a better speaker than I am.
Wouldn't go that far. Yeah, so like Joel said, the document that you guys were given was just a very straightforward thing. I know months ago, we gave a presentation that was just real fancy, real showy, just to get the conversation started, reignited. This one was just a very straightforward thing that we worked on over a couple of weeks in-house, and then with a few conversations with a handful of council members as well. That document kind of went over the history of where we're at right now, where we started this conversation when Joel and I came in 2017 and just trying to reactivate usage of the Griswold, which really started after this building was finished and all of the city municipal functions left the building, which really kind of left it feeling empty in there. So then in 2019, we held, like Joel said, the April series. We had regular live music each week throughout the month of April, with intentions of kicking that back up again in 2020, which were not to come to fruition. In the report, it kind of listed events that happened in 2019. I don't have that right in front of me, but you can kind of see a breakdown of how many weddings, birthday parties, what we called community forums, or just a variety of different rentals where the public was invited for different events. Let's see here, what are we looking at? Yes, and then of course, you guys listed activation of the Griswold as part of your goals last time around. And that was when we kick-started that really flashy presentation. We started having communications with Abbenmarsh. They came in and did a facilities assessment on the whole building. And then the last time we chatted about the Griswold as a group was in regards to programming there in that building. So this document that we've put together now is just kind of initial steps, where to go from this point. Through starting Rolling on the River, we've really built a pretty strong network of musicians that we work with, promoters that we work with, developed some really tight-knit relationships that we can lean on for programming at the Griswold as well. We've had a few of them that have overlapped, maybe just a couple that have overlapped between Rolling on the River and performing at the Griswold. Every time we host something at the Griswold, we hear nothing but rave reviews about the building. It's quite a marvel for people whose familiarity with Allegan is very minimum. And then they walk in, and I remember the first night at the April series, somebody walked in, and I heard them off to the left, and they were like, "Oh, this is just like the Civic Theater." And it was neat to hear that kind of reaction from somebody who doesn't know much about Allegan, hadn't been to Allegan before. In 2020, we held an open house where we kind of got feedback from the community. And then again, we talked about the Abbenmarsh consultants. These immediate steps include securing a liquor license for the building. What that does, first and foremost, is becomes a revenue generator for us. The way to make the money at these events is going to be to sell alcohol. We would be able to sell that ourselves at our city-hosted concerts or events that we were to hold there. It also gives us the ability to almost sell like a package to weddings, to birthday parties that are going to rent out the building, and they purchase the alcohol through us, then to be able to serve at their event. We have begun work on the Marilla Lounge. All of that carpet that was beginning to tear up on its own has been completely removed. Ryan has worked tirelessly to remove the adhesive from the floor, sand it, and now we are getting somebody to come in just to do the final touches to get some of those areas that Ryan couldn't quite get to, and then professionally seal and finish that floor. And then we have the hopes, we've talked about in that flashy document that was shared, to turn it into more of an intimate setting, more of an intimate lounge kind of feel, with a small stage, bar area, and seating, and the ability to hang portraits and art on the walls in sort of a gallery form. And then, of course, making those restrooms on the main floor ADA accessible. Through that Abbenmarsh facilities assessment, they presented a couple different options, if you remember, and one of them was simply just taking out what I'll call the stall wall in there to have enough room for those who are in a wheelchair to access the restroom. And that's a very simple fix that can be done by staff. And then next steps moving forward, we've, again, spoken on kitchen remodel and getting that to a point where we could utilize that better than it is now. The club room, which is located on the second floor, the upper floor of the building, a similar remodel in that room as is done in the Marilla Lounge. No bar or stage, but ripping up that carpet in there. There's more beautiful hardwood floor underneath, and just making that a space that can be better utilized than it is now. And then an update to the HVAC system, which is outdated, and once updated could prove to be a cost savings for the building. So that's kind of where we're at, and we just wanted to start this general conversation. Now's the time to do it. It's been closed more or less for the last year. We are starting to book more rentals in the building coming up at the end of this year and into next year. Ryan has taken over those duties, so we've got stuff on the books for the next couple of months. A wedding in December, a birthday party. AISA is holding a county-wide educator conference at the end of the month, or at the end of October, rather. They picked Allegan because of our social district and centrally located, and they can, what they're doing I should expound on that a little bit more. What they're doing, it's called a reignite event. So what they're doing is just kind of refreshing the Allegan County educators, showing their appreciation to them and getting their head in the game, because it's been a long couple of months and year for them. So yeah, they want to have a night out on the town, and the Griswold are going to have a big, like a TED Talk kind of thing there. So super exciting.
Thank you so much, Parker.
Yeah.
Ryan, did you have anything to add? No? Okay. Well, thanks for all your hard work on this document. I know that we did have a few people that were meeting about this, so I don't know, it was Dave, Peter, and Roger. Do you have anything that you'd like to add before we kind of open the floor for discussion?
My biggest thing on the document and the vision here is what I didn't see, and it was the marketing plan to get more use of the facility. I saw a lot of, we can spend money on this, this, and this, and I didn't see how are we going to market to get more people to use it. That's more what I want to see in an actual plan going forward. And then we can prioritize what updates need to be done based on what we, going down the road, like ADA bathroom, definitely something I want to see. HVAC, it would pay itself off in a little over 6 years, so that's kind of a no-brainer. Upstairs lounge, maybe if we actually choose to get a liquor license, because that would be a bar area possibly during shows. But what I didn't see in the document really was a vision on how we're gonna market. And that's what I really want to see.
Was that something you guys had
Yeah,
discussed?
that was something because you wouldn't want to hear what I was saying when I read the document the first time by
Okay.
myself. It was not pretty.
Do you guys have thoughts on marketing, or somebody explain what you guys had discussed?
Dave, you want to go? Is there stuff you want to talk about?
Sure, yeah, I can talk. So I think that there's some improvements that are offered in here that are kind of like, those should have been done 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and those would be fine to do. And I think there's a level of, we own this building, we ought to be maintaining it well, and, that's where I think Peter's point about like the HVAC system and the ADA accessibility in the downstairs bathroom, yeah, let's do those. I think the way forward, if we're really looking for something new and different and for a new era for the Griswold Auditorium, I think we need to be ready to make a pretty serious investment, and I think a lot of that investment is going to be in staff time. I remember when we saw the proposal from the promoter, and that was a pretty well-developed vision for what would happen at the Griswold. I think the expectations were unrealistic, but it was very clear what his goals were and what his plans were for the Griswold. And he had an expectation that he was paid and that his position with that was valued and that he would be committed to being the promoter for the Griswold Auditorium. I think we would need to be pretty clear about who's going to be the programming director for the Griswold. And I think to the point of vision for the Griswold, I actually like better in this version of the presentation. I felt like this version of the presentation that I saw moved it closer towards an event center. I think thinking of having classes there or community events or conferences, I think that's a stronger vision for the Griswold than expecting it to be a theater where you would see plays. It would be great for that to happen, but if you think about the lift for that, the number of people that have to get behind plays, and that it becomes then to some degree exclusive to that purpose, right? If you've got sets and props and wardrobe, that requires a big investment and a big effort. And then the programming director for the theater, what plays happen there? How do you get directors for each play? How do you get actors together? I think that's probably not a feasible thing for us to aim for at this point in time with the Griswold. But I do think there's a real need for community classes. I think the library probably has it covered for kids programming, but I think adult programming, like you think about electricians every once in a while need to get updated on their skills, and they need a place to go where regionally all those electricians and carpenters could show up. I think hosting bands there would really look at what our staffing investment is if we want to move it forward to something bigger. If we want to just keep doing what we're doing and just do those building updates, then that's one thing. But I think we should think about the future and having increased programming and really optimal management.
Thanks, Dave. Roger, what was your kind of takeaway from your meetings?
So, I mean, this has been an evolution, and we've talked through, and staff has come back and reformed this document. I really think they did a great job with this. And this is a 50,000-foot document. This is not in the weeds on a marketing plan. Like, we're saying, these are the things we're going to do. Obviously, we need a marketing plan, and we need to pursue and hold staff accountable to do those things and maybe report back. But I think the big step forward with this is just that it's creating some sort of vision. Like, we know what or hopefully, as if we all agree on it, we know where we're going, where we want to get to. Because I think for the last several years, we don't have any vision for the Griswold. It just, weddings happen there sometimes, and we need to say, oh, so this is for the arts, it's for conferences, it's for, different kind of trade shows, but to say, this is where we want to go, and we're going to work out all the details. But I'm happy with this. Obviously doesn't fill in or check off every box, but I think we're moving in the right direction.
Thanks, Roger. Okay, I'll go ahead and open up to council. Is there any comments, council, on this? Rachel?
Sure. First thing, the bathroom next to the Marilla room, correct? Is that what we're talking about, taking the stall door down?
That's correct.
Which would accommodate probably 36-inch, whatever that needs to happen for ADA. However, it does not touch on the sound issue.
Sure.
You can hear that toilet flush, you can hear anything that is remotely loud in there. So that, to me, this is a quick fix, and it would work, but it's not it. I mean, so with that said, a marketing plan or anything, I don't think should happen unless we've actually made a significant investment in that building and made it worth a destination. I mean, if you can hear somebody going to the bathroom during a concert, what are we marketing? I mean,
Is it during the concert or just when you guys were in council in the Marilla Lounge?
well, the Marilla Lounge, and I'm assuming the Marilla Lounge will be redone to have intimate
the
concerts.
intimate concerts in
Not the
okay.
auditorium. I mean, I hope to God you're not hearing something.
Well,
in
that's
the
what I was thinking. I was like,
auditorium.
in the auditorium, man.
The Marilla, we're already using the auditorium. We know what works-ish for the auditorium, but we have never used the Marilla room for small concert, I mean, the piano type stuff and
I
whatnot.
think the sound could probably be addressed at the same time to look at it, sound control. I know a couple sound control companies that could come in and add panels which are needed. It's the same issue you have at like Shenandoah's. These people put in these restaurants and they don't understand sound control and they just,
As a person who lives next to Schaendorf, I'm well aware of acoustics, and that's why I'm saying that the bathroom is a significant thing to have as a quiet place, whether you have something going on in the auditorium or in the Marilla room or upstairs or wherever it might be. ADA is very important. I'm not concerned with any kind of marketing plan until we actually invest in that building. Beyond, and thank you to everybody who's doing, the grunt work with tearing up carpeting and sanding and that sort of stuff, but we really need to. It's time. It's like grandma's house. It's comfortable, but it's not that great. Let's make the improvements.
And I have to say that I agree with Rachel. When I saw this, I did like that purpose statement, because that's kind of what I had envisioned for the Griswold, is to be an art, entertainment, educational center. But in order to get there, you do need to make some improvements. I mean, not the 1.5 million Abbott Marsh, came up with, but something that makes it desirable for use. It's very cavernous. We were just in there for the circuit court doing a jury trial, juror selection process. And it's not the most comfortable building to be in. As I was sitting out there, bathroom definitely was something that I heard over and over again. So, but yeah, I appreciate the work that went into developing this. I just wanted to kind of get the gentleman's opinions over here since they were involved in those meetings. So, Tracy or Teresa, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't know how I feel about any of it at this time, so I don't really have anything to say.
Okay. How about you, Teresa?
Same as Trace. I mean, we sit and talk about we have to do this stuff, but because we can't always wait for the money, but now this is the second project we've talked about in the last 2 meetings that we got to go ahead and do it, but the finances aren't there. But yet I understand we need to fix something up before we can start, scheduling programs. So I kind of have mixed feelings about it. So.
Peter?
I'm kind of the opposite of that. We got to have a marketing plan, because otherwise, why are we doing these improvements? If we don't have a goal of where we want to go with it, what type of usage or how much usage we want of it, then what are we doing the improvements for? Just to do the improvements? Let's actually say, if we have this many shows in there currently, our goal is to come to here and have this type of capability, but making the improvements aren't going to necessarily make all of a sudden people come and decide to use it. Right now they can use it. It's available to use, and I think we need to use it more. And during COVID, of course, we haven't seen that increase like we were hoping to see. And I just want to see from Parker and from the staff, kind of, okay, where do we think we could go with it? Similar to that promoters plan, to say, this is where you could be at so far down the road, and then it makes sense to make the investment. Otherwise, it's just, we're making an investment, or we're just throwing good money after bad if we don't know where we're going.
So just real quick, because I've heard marketing plan a few times, and we talked about marketing plans when the 3 of us met, or the 4 of us met. Parker was into that meeting. Is there a desire to have what I'm going to call some benchmarks or milestones, as well as how are we going to accomplish those benchmarks and milestones?
That's kind of what I'm looking at.
Is
It's
that,
like
am
under,
I picking up, I'm trying to, because I had a difficult time when we met, as the 3 of you are aware, I'm picking up where we were going with that. If that's what you're looking for, I think that's stuff we can do.
yeah, I'm not looking for, we're gonna do this. It's more like, we're here, this is where we want to go, and this is some of the ways that we're gonna get there. Is we're gonna get more networking with more concert promoters. We're gonna have something that we're gonna be doing to achieve said goal.
Yeah. So that step process is a step process that, we
Yeah.
can probably put together. If it's more of the West Michigan area has a socioeconomic profile of A, B, C, D, and these are the type of people that spend this much money at these kind of events. There's not capacity or even the ability amongst city staff, I think, to do that kind of work. I mean, in my spare time, I watch dumb TV shows like Bar Rescue. All that data they throw up from Esri, which is a GIS product we actually do have here, but to pay for that extra data and dive into it, you have a certain skill set, and
No,
it's
I'm-
not a city manager that has that
That's-
skill set,
That's not really what I'm looking for. It's
Okay.
similar to like the marketing plan we got from the promoter, which is like,
which we still have
which
on
we
our
can kind of
hands.
go, okay, and then how are we gonna achieve it?
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna network with people from other theaters and see if we can get
Yeah.
referrals from them that like they don't have availability, so, hey, we know Allegan up the road, maybe they have availability for the dates you want. Doing the networking and marketing, it's, making those connections with the people that we want in there, whether it's music, whether it's comedy, whether it's community events. We need to let people know what we have. And if all we're gonna do is just keep shining our egg to make it look better and not actually display it to say, hey, this is what we have, come see our egg,
Right.
then it's kind of pointless.
Tracy, did you have something?
So what I'm hearing is the majority of the council wants to keep this venue, keep the Griswold as an event center. We're not talking about introducing classes or a community drop-in center. It's an event center is what this, I'm hearing. Is that correct?
Well, you could still have classes downstairs, I'm assuming, because that
Well,
downstairs
that's
is
where I
like-
start to get confused, though. What is the Griswold? Then you start to, other people
It's-
get confused and don't know.
I think it's multi-use, because if you just peg hole you in one set, then we have that big space downstairs that what's that ever gonna be used for if we don't say, well, it can be a banquet hall?
Events.
So,
Oh,
I mean,
events, which could be
they have
food
a-
classes.
But that's where I think I get confused, community gets confused. How are you gonna market this? Well, it's an event center for your wedding, but you can come play pickleball if there's not an event going on. I just like, we just need to, for city staff, what is it we want this to be so they can focus on it? And then with, spending the money, it's like, yeah, we all don't wanna spend money, about that, but if we maintain it, and I don't know, maybe 10 years down the road, this becomes such a big popular place, we're able to sell it to somebody who they manage it, like the State Theater or the Civic Center. I mean, which are not government-ran things. They're privately owned event places, event centers.
So I'm just gonna real quick, I mean, there was a purpose statement that was included in the presentation. So it's like a regionally renowned event center.
Yeah.
Is that the direction? Because
Well, when
in
I-
our report, staff is saying that they hope there can be a consensus by council on the initial steps and immediate actions of the document. So if we're in agreement that that is the purpose statement we want to move forward with, is there a consensus that that's?
So we're only agreeing to the purpose statement, not the,
No, I just want to make sure that we have the purpose in mind, so then we can let them know about these initial steps and the immediate actions that are in the document. Like, because they're looking for direction on whether this document is something that we want them to move forward with. So, I mean, for me, I'm fine, I like this purpose statement. That's what I would envision the Griswold to be. Is there consensus from Dave?
for agreement on the purpose statement, yeah, but the document as a whole, I think, is seriously lacking in a lot of areas.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
like Roger had said, this is kind of like a 50,000-foot aerial view.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure I'm not agreeing to spending the money as documented
Okay.
in this document.
Yeah,
Okay, so, all right, so if we're not
So,
agreeing to
yeah,
anything,
so-
where I'm agreeing for that, sure, okay.
But we like the purpose statement.
Yeah.
That's where we want them to focus and move forward with. Joel?
So I just want, first of all, thank you to both, Councilmember Perigo and Mayor Andrus for clarifying that and the other ones around the table. Yeah, we want to make sure that the purpose statement, the direction is the correct direction that you want us to take the Griswold Auditorium. And we did massage this a lot since that one meeting. So this is a way different purpose statement than what we presented to the subcommittee based on input they gave us. With that said, the initial steps that were listed next and our immediate actions, you're not agreeing this, I mean, the Marilla Lounge remodel, the work we're doing in there falls under basic building maintenance. We're not knocking walls down. We're not redoing plumbing or anything in there. So right now, we're just doing basic building maintenance that we've got to take care of. It's well within my job description and the charter for me to maintain our public buildings. So I don't think I'm overstepping that far. The liquor license, that is something that staff truly believes we need to find a way to secure and sell alcohol there for multiple reasons.
But are you talking about 5 days a week? I don't.
No.
Just during events, right?
We did say to the committee, one of them,
Because I don't like that.
there's a development, and neither do I.
Okay.
And I don't think the staff does. There are multiple liquor licenses that are available for this kind of an institution. One is a redevelopment liquor license, a development liquor license. And then I want to contact Mary Whiteford and Eric Nesbitt and talk about the Municipal Civic Center liquor license. That's only available to publicly owned civic centers, which this is, in towns of a population of 9,500. When we are a town of 5,000, but we sit in the middle of a service area, if you include the surrounding townships, of 17,000. This is a civic center for the townships as much as it is for the city. When Cabaret occurs there, which is probably the biggest event that happens there, and they sell it out on 2 consecutive weekends, I see a lot of non-city residents non-city community members when I am there. So if we don't move forward with a liquor license, then we are going to have to redraw our social district boundaries, which is simple. We can do that because you cannot pull a special liquor license inside the boundaries of a social district. And so that's a decision we'll have to make before Cabaret gets up next, because that's the next big event that happens there.
The cabaret organizers have reached out to us regarding this. We had an event that was scheduled to happen in November, a murder mystery dinner, cancel because we haven't gotten any headway on that. So those are just things to consider as well. And if we are to pull special licenses, the Positively Allegan nonprofit, they get 12 a year to be able to pull. So in our house, we would be limited to those 12. We would have to seek out other organizations to be able to pull those licenses as we've done in the past. So that's nothing new either, but.
When families rent it for weddings,
That's what I was
they,
going to
they,
ask.
they
is that-
provide additional insurance to the city. They have to buy a rider on their home policy to be able to bring alcohol into into the Griswold for their wedding receptions. However, if we have a liquor license, just like other event centers, we can, say, yeah, we have alcohol. You have to buy it off us, though. You can't roll the keg in the back of the pickup truck.
Oh, okay.
So there is some, so when we talk about marketing and, to me, that's part of marketing, making sure we have the right tools in the toolbox to get the job done. So we see that as being a benefit. You're not voting yes on it, but I would like some direction of, that sounds interesting, do a little more research and come back to us with a little more research on that, on all the different ones. And I'll be very clear, we are not looking to open a bar up there at all. We are looking at putting another tool in the toolbox. If the Marilla Lounge, and we do the art gallery correctly, and we brought in the owners of Brave Art Gallery just outside of town, they're the ones that gave us, the estimates for the wall hanging gliders. They're the ones that gave us the estimate for the type of lighting you should do so you can capture the neutral shade, something, they told me on the riverfront. And then the wall color paint, which right now is not conducive to hanging art because it's green. Yeah, it's gotta be, yeah. So we're looking into some of that stuff. We gotta make decisions at all. There could be an occasional though, Dave, I want to be clear on this one. There could be an occasional where it's a Wednesday night and it might be artist so-and-so is presenting her paintings this evening. And we would open up and have, a bottle of Chardonnay for people to have some wine. I want it. That's not my drink, but, maybe a Busch Light as well in the refrigerator for the Busch Light people in the audience. That is more of the direction we're going. So I just want to be very clear, because I heard bar a couple of times. I was like, man, I need to get out in front of that one, because we are not looking at creating a bar.
Thanks, Joel. So I want to make sure that council kind of weighs in on the initial steps and the immediate actions. I mean, for me, looking at the immediate actions, I'm fine with moving forward with them. Rachel, I see you nodding your head.
Yes, in agreement.
Okay. Tracy, did you have any? No? You're okay with them moving forward with those? Teresa?
That's fine.
Okay. Roger? Yeah. Peter?
Initial steps, immediate actions, as far as getting a liquor license, I'd say we're looking into it. I kind of put that on next steps because we could always just redraw the district and at least get 12. I think, what is those temporary, are they for one day only?
Yep.
They're like $25.
But
correct?
Delora right now is just talking about the initial steps.
Yeah. Like, I just want to make sure that we can give them,
Oh, I thought you said initial and immediate actions.
Yeah,
Liquor
I-
license is under immediate.
yeah, because we've got like next steps and,
And that's why I said liquor license. I'm like, it's kind of in between an immediate action and a next step
yeah.
for me.
It's under immediate actions in this one here. So would you like them to look into that and just kind of see?
Yeah, it's
where
look
things
into
are-
it,
okay.
yeah.
Dave?
Sure. I mean, I think, for me, I'd really like to see a plan that talks about increased programming and optimal management of the Griswold. And I'd like to see us be able to talk about those two things.
Okay.
But this is fine, sure.
Okay.
It's fine.
All right. So, and I think that's kind of what Joel had mentioned earlier with like Peter's marketing is to kind of have
I think
different
that's kinda
promotion
Under the
and-
initial steps
yeah.
in here, but it's
Peter's
just,
marketing idea, when Joel had kind of referred to that and how,
Yeah. And very, very quickly, yeah, so personally, I'm not looking for approval of this document as it's written. To me, there's some ebb and flow that's gonna happen. One thing we really didn't identify is the, optimal management. We didn't list staff people out very clearly. This person's in charge of this. This person's in charge of this. So that's stuff we can add, as we go through it. It's stuff we know here, but we probably should put pen to paper so it's a little clearer or more clear for the reader.
but the overall consensus is this is a good document, council, is that
Oh,
where we're at?
I think we just agreed on the general purpose
Yeah.
statement, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Direction.
Oh,
Direction,
okay.
That's what I heard.
yeah, direction.
So we
which
did,
staff
we
is
did
good
talk
with. We know
about
what
some
we're doing.
immediate actions,
Yeah.
and everyone kind of shook their head. Okay, so, I feel like we did,
we've
yes.
been, yeah.
Okay. All right, so next up, what we have is the discussion regarding various ordinances and policies for the Water Utilities Department.
Real quick, Doug, come up to the podium. We're gonna pull up the municipal policy.
I wasn't
No, no, no,
long-winded tonight.
yeah.
Yeah. Say, we have 23 minutes.
Set it on the thing, it happens. We got it. Reset the whole thing. So over the summer, as mentioned in the memo for the report, as well as the email I sent a couple weeks ago, because I realized this was a long document and you probably wanted this more than 4 days before your meeting. City staff has been working with each other on updating our water ordinance, our sewer ordinance, our municipal policy, and our township city sewer agreement. We've been working with our environmental lawyer, Jim Enbright, on this project. Doug really has been taking the lead on this. Parker and Ryan are trying to get the screen back up for you, but without further ado, let's first start off with, are there any initial questions or issues staff may have had or the council may have had with any of the documents you saw? A lot of it was wordsmithing, so a lot of it was, just striking out stuff we didn't need to deal with anymore.
Doug, I did have a question regarding the township services. So we are just getting them in line with city residents, correct? So the township customers are going to be treated the same as
Yes.
city residents? So that was kind of the,
It kind of goes both ways. It's treatment of, that the township is considered the same as city as far as utility customers, but it's also enforcing the use and connections of the water utilities that are available to township residents.
because if they can hook up, they are supposed to hook up, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But that is not enforceable
Not the
right
way,
now.
okay. And that's something, council, that we had kind of discussed in WUSC a bit, was that we have this in place, but we're not really enforcing them to connect to the city system.
So it's enforceable with this update? I mean, how is it
The
going to be
way
enforceable?
so what has happened over the past several years, 10 to 15 years, is there was an agreement drafted between the township and the city. That agreement says that the township will adopt an ordinance that's substantially identical to the city ordinance. City finally got the township to adopt an ordinance. They took our ordinance and adopted it. But our ordinance says city residents that are adjacent to or within 200 feet of a water or sewer line will connect. Well, that's what the township ordinance says. So how can I go to a township resident that's within 200 feet of a water or sewer main and say, ordinance says you have to connect, when someone that's not even an attorney says the ordinance says I have to be a city resident within 200 feet.
Okay.
So the way these were edited, it changes the language so that the township can adopt the ordinance as it's presented to city council and adopt it, and the wording is adequate that it would apply to township residents also that are adjacent to a water sewer line.
And I assume the townships know that this is getting updated and it's coming their way? What's that discussion with them? Because they don't have to adopt it, do they?
21 days, right? And then
How do you enforce them adopting it?
So what we want to do is we want to make sure council's comfortable with the sewer use agreement. I meet regularly with the township supervisor, and I would say, yeah, this has been a discussion item since I've been here. So I'm not going to say they know it's coming down the pipeline, but they are aware we have these discussions often.
Thank you. Did anybody else have any questions? No?
The last discussion, Councilmember McKenzie asked if there were any legal issues with the sewer discount. Did we ever research that?
With the sewer discount as concerned to sprinkling?
Yeah, the summer sewer discount where we offer a discount to folks who,
No, I guess I don't remember it being
Single-family
a
homes?
legal issue.
Well, so it's back to the fair and equitable treatment, right?
Right,
Because
yeah.
if
Right.
you're giving a discount to certain people, the majority's paying for it. We're subsidizing for the folks that are,
No, we did not research whether it's legal or, I mean, it's in everyone's own eyes if it's fair and equitable, because some people are paying it, some people are not. What, that's listed in the water utility policy. What we did was we just removed that section from here. And basically giving it back to council and saying, if you want to do something with it, how do you want us to move forward with a sewer discount for that?
so it was included in this year's budget with the fees, and then
Yes.
it needs to be addressed, I'm assuming, at the next time.
Right,
next
when
budget,
when the
strategic,
policy
whatever.
is,
Yeah.
When
Yeah, 'cause it-
Rachel's no longer here.
Under section 4.2.
When Rachel is no longer here.
She's coming back for that.
Well, it's
You'll
your
be at
strategic
that
plan.
meeting, I'm sure.
So that was addressed under, I believe, section 4.2. I had made a note of it because I was looking for it to see whether it was included in this. All
right.
And so the sewer discount for the pool filling was still included, but
Yes.
they removed the sprinkler
we
discount.
removed the sprinkler discount, added language for the pool filling or, a substantial use that does not go down the sewer can be discounted or not pay sewer on that portion.
Thanks, Doug. Anybody else have any questions? Okay.
All right?
I
Thank you.
have-
Teresa?
I have just something that I'm curious about. Are all our city residents made to hook up to sewer?
They should be.
City properties?
They should be. We are finding some that are not.
Thank you.
There are, the ordinance says that any property that has a property line within 200 feet of a water or sewer main must connect.
So it'd be the same ordinance? Okay.
Yes. We actually have, I cannot, Sean, our distribution manager, has identified a couple of properties that their property line is not within 200 feet of a water or sewer main. One of them has actually ran a water line to their house. It's a smaller size than what should have been run to their house. But one of the other properties, because they're that far away,
And that is metered, please?
yes, oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
That,
okay.
that is metered. It's just, it's like a 500-foot run, but they ran a 5 or 3/4 inch line, where it should have probably been a 2-inch line, but,
All right.
so.
So is there anything saying that we can make these people hook up to sewer?
One is city ordinance, two is health department. Health department will tell residents or people that are building houses, if there's a sewer available, you have to connect to that. So this kind of goes along with what is required of the health department.
Okay.
does that kind of thing get caught during like a home inspection if this home's being sold?
I want to say yes, but it's only been recently that health department has been contacting water utilities. One, when houses are bought and sold, but also we're finding houses that have either septic or well, and one or the other goes bad, and they go to apply for a new permit to drive a new well or put in a new septic, just recently has the county health department been contacting us saying, before we issue this permit, is there
Right.
is there a water or sewer main available for them to connect to?
Okay.
We actually had one incident this spring, a commercial property that is cornered on two sides by city property, but is in the township, has water and sewer main running on both sides of it. We said, yeah, water and sewer is available, and they should be connecting, and they said no, and we'll just keep what we have and sell it this way. So,
Okay.
Doug, did you have any highlights that you wanted to kind of point out for us?
just most of the highlights would be in the policy. The ordinances are adapted to the policy to enforce what the policy says, because the ordinances are law or rule. So the policy, one of them you've touched on already, the removal of the sprinkling discount. The second change in the policy, it come out of WUSC also, and that is the RTS charges and when and where they apply or do not apply. And let's see, that would be section 110. RTS charges as follows. There was 5 different possibilities. So as I said, those were developed during the WUSC committees. Basically, any parcel in the city or adjacent to a water or sewer main in the township would pay an RTS charge if they've connected or ever been connected to a water or sewer line. If it's been a vacant parcel forever, there would be no RTSs. The other change to the RTS is for sprinkler systems, irrigation systems. Right now, the policy is if you have a second meter for a underground sprinkler system, you are charged a second RTS fee. This does away with that second RTS fee on a underground sprinkler system unless there are 2 taps on the main. If there's a second tap on the main for your sprinkler system, there will be 2 RTS charges. But if it is just a T in your main service line and a second meter, the owner buys the second meter. That's their meter. There is no RTS charge on that. And then on that meter, in the past, it was only charged certain summer months of the year. This says they'll be charged water usage whenever there is a registered water usage, so.
Thank you. I reviewed it. I didn't see any glaring issues that I had with any of the changes. So thank you for all your efforts. Council, did you have anything? Are you all pretty amenable to this as presented? Okay.
All right, thank
Thanks
you.
so much, Doug.
So if you're okay with the changes, the process is going to be at your October 12th meeting. You will be holding a first reading for the ordinance changes and then scheduling a public hearing on them for the second meeting in October, correct, Doug?
Yes, one caveat to that is the sewer use ordinance. Once council approves it, it does have to go to Eagle for approval, because the sewer use ordinance deals with industrial pretreatment. So what we allow industries and actually residents in the city to discharge into the sewer. So there are, other than word changes, there are 2 changes in there, increasing the plant loading capacity and removal of the metal 10 from the compatible pollutants. Sorry, lost my wording there for a moment. Those will have to go to Eagle for review. Right now, we have a draft into them for verbal agreement, but the IPP person has indicated that she is very busy and may or may not be able to get to it before it is council approved. So typically, the process is council approves it. The attorney has to give a statement that the ordinance is legal and meets all requirements from Eagle and EPA for IPP program. It gets submitted to Eagle. They review it and give their blessing on it. Or if they disagree, then it would have to come back to council and say, hey, this is not approvable by Eagle. This is the changes we do have to make, so.
Okay. Thanks so much, Doug. Next, we have a review of the fiscal year 2022 revenue and expenditure report through August 2021. Did anyone have any questions, comments, concerns? I did notice overtime was at 100% already, which I think we'd been apprised of already, though. Nothing? Okay. Review of the council agenda. Any council members see any additions, corrections for tonight's regular meeting agenda?
It's too long.
Okay.
Because it's long.
It is
Okay,
long.
I get it. Really thought I made a mistake for a second there, Roger. It's like, how did I screw
No, it's
that
just
up?
a long agenda with a lot of public hearings. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and adjourn at 6:51, the study session, and we will reconvene at 7 o'clock for regular session. Hey, it is, oh, go ahead. Is the air on?
Or 72.
Yeah, that's warm.
Well, it is now 7:01, so I'm going to go ahead and call the regular city council meeting to order. Could I get a roll call for attendance, please?
Councilmember Redding.
Here.
Councilmember Hands.
Present.
Councilmember Byrd.
Here.
Councilmember Perigo.
Present.
Councilmember McKenzie.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Galloway.
Here.
Mayor Andrus.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have agenda item number 3, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone could please rise and join me in stating the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we have agenda item number 4, which is approval of the agenda. Under 4A, approval of the regular council meeting agenda for September 27th, 2021.
So moved.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Agenda item 5, which is approval of minutes. Under 5A, we have approval of the study session minutes from August 23rd, 2021 council meeting. Were there any corrections or additions? Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. 5B, approval of the regular meeting minutes from August 23rd, 2021 council meeting. If there are no additions or corrections, could I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Under 5C, we have approval of the closed session minutes from August 23rd. We were just handed out some minutes, so if you could please take a moment to review.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a correction. I'm listed as a voting participant on one of the items.
Oh, yep,
Dave was not present for that meeting, correct?
Correct.
correct. You have motion passed 6-0, but Dave was not in attendance.
Sorry for that mistake.
Okay.
Missed one.
So could I get a motion, please, to approve
Motion to
the?
approve with the amendment.
Thank you.
Second.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. And Parker's going to come by and pick up these closed session minutes. Next, under agenda item number 8, we have public hearings and adoption of ordinance. Under 8A, we have a public hearing on the sale of parcel 51-251-041-00 on Low Street from the city of Allegan to the Allegan Area Education Service Agency. Staff, do you have a report?
Yeah, very quickly. This was discussed at a previous council meeting. The city currently owns a parcel of land approximately 2.16 acres in size on the north side of Low Street. On the screens behind you, it is the parcel of land that is highlighted in this blue line. The city has no plans or need for this property. We've reached out to ASA, who has a home building trades program, and we inquired if they'd be interested in purchasing this property for $1 from the city of Allegan. They said they would. We brought this information to council. You scheduled a public hearing tonight to receive comment on this sale. After the public hearing, we're recommending that you sell this parcel of land to ASA for $1 for their building trades program.
Thank you, Joel. Council, are there any questions for staff? Roger?
Just a couple. I appreciate in the letter that they say that this is going to be used to build residential homes. Is that in the sales agreement? We talked about that last time, but I just want to make sure that that is.
It will be.
And is there any stipulation that if they don't use it for that, do we get it does it come back to us, or?
So yeah, so the purchase agreement that we would work with them is we sell it for $1 to be used for their building trade program as outlined, or building trades 2 program as outlined in their letter on July 26th. Then we would throw some language in there that if they don't move forward with the program, we would, the legal term is claw it back. We will claw it back. So we can put that in the agreement.
Great.
Any other questions, council, for staff? Okay. Seeing none, I am going to go ahead and open the floor for public comment on agenda item 8A. And it is 7:06. If you have any public comment, please approach the podium. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:06. And council, could I get a motion, please, if this is something you'd like to approve?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion, council, amongst ourselves? No? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Abstain? Okay.
Thank you.
And Peter, that's due to your wife's position, is that correct? Okay, thank you. Okay. Next up, we have agenda item 8B, which is a public hearing and second reading on Ordinance 495 regarding amendments to the Zoding Ordinance regarding signage allowances for marijuana establishments. Staff?
Sure. This is a second reading on Ordinance 495. What this allows is, it allows the marijuana establishments to have full signage rights as our other commercial entities do in the various commercial zone districts, specifically freestanding signs. This applicant has requested to, place a freestanding sign on their property. But the ordinance would apply to all marijuana establishments going forward, so they get the same signage rights as their neighbors do in each zoning district.
They still would need to comply with any of the MRTRMA
Correct.
signage requirements, however. Okay. Council, do you have any questions for staff? Okay.
I would just say this kind of just goes back to the fair and equitable thing that Rachel has been bringing up. I didn't say harps on. but-
Advocates for.
There you go. Excellent, Dave. That's very diplomatic. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing at 7:08 under agenda item 8B. Anyone with public comment, please approach the podium. Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:09. Council, could I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. Do we have any further discussion? No. Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, under 8C, we have a public hearing and second reading on Ordinance 496 regarding amendments to the zoning ordinance regarding development requirements in the C1 Central Business District. Staff?
Sure. As council's well aware, we are a redevelopment-ready certified community through the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, MEDC. MEDC created this program to encourage and guide cities to develop ordinances that become developer-friendly, and also help us make sure that we're creating places where people want to be. We are going through our recertification process right now. As part of our recertification process, they want us to create an ordinance that focuses more on placemaking. So looking at some of the options, the placemaking ordinance that we have settled on is one that helps encourage or continues a rhythmic pattern of door openings and window openings along our main street. So the ordinance that is in front of you, that you reviewed at your last meeting, does just that. Any new development shall have entrances occur every 60 feet Window coverage, measuring at 18 inches above the sidewalk to 10 feet above the sidewalk should be at least 60% of the portion of the street facade. So it's really just continuing what we have right now on Locust Street, Brady Street, Hubbard, that storefront appeal. We do have a option in the ordinance for people to appeal, or if, for some reason the design just doesn't work and they gotta have a little less door openings or something like that. So it's not horribly stringent, but it does satisfy this requirement through the MEDC. And staying redevelopment ready for the city is extremely important, since almost all of the redevelopment in downtown is taking advantage of the grants from the MEDC, and we have to be redevelopment ready to get those grants. This is the second reading. There is a public hearing tonight.
Thank you, Joel. Council, do we have any questions for staff? Okay. Seeing none, I will go ahead and open the public hearing on agenda item 8C, which is ordinance 496 at 7:12. Seeing no public comment, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:12. And council, could I get a motion to adopt ordinance 496, please?
So moved. Support.
It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Under agenda item 8D, we have another public hearing and second reading on ordinance 497 regarding amendments to the zoning to rezone 225 Green Street from the M1 Manufacturing District to the R3 Multifamily Dwelling District. And I know we've talked about this previously as well. Joel, do you have a report?
Unfortunately, the map on the slide, or the screen's behind you, is not the correct one, so I apologize for that. So 225 Green Street is located just north of the Low Street property that you see right there. It is currently zoned M1. It is owned by a Mr. Lee. M1 is manufacturing. Mr. Lee would like to rezone it to R3 so he can build on it. We've done a handful of rezonings in this general area to R3 to make the building, to just allow for more residential development in this area. R3 allows for single families, duplexes. He isn't sure if he's gonna build just a single family home or build a duplex on this parcel. Any questions?
Joel, I have I'm
Okay,
sorry.
go ahead,
Delora,
Teresa. No, absolutely.
Is this does this run behind that new house that's there, Joel?
So.
Would be
This
just west
one,
of.
I believe this is the one that's just behind the new one that's there, because the new one went right next to the church. So if you look on the
Yes,
screen,
correct.
if you look on the screen, you can actually see part of the parcel. It's this parcel right here where the cursor is. So earlier this evening, we agreed to sell this parcel to ASA, and it's this parcel that we're talking about. So this is the eastern half of that parcel.
Okay, so that is right behind that
Yeah,
new
so it's
house.
right behind it.
Okay, thank you.
Council, are there any other questions for staff?
Does this fall in line with our master plan?
Oh, yeah. Yes, it does. Yeah, so this goes through the planning commission first, and that's the first thing they ask. They look at the master plan first and say, does the rezoning comply with what the master plan calls for?
And all zoning ordinance have to comply with the master plan. So, if there's no further questions, I will go ahead and open the public hearing on agenda item 8D, which is ordinance 497, at 7:15. Seeing no public comment, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:15. Council, if we have no issues with this, could I get a motion, please, to adopt ordinance 497?
Support.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Under agenda item 8E, We have a public hearing and adoption of Resolution 21.26 regarding a 425 agreement between the City of Allegan and Allegan Township. And this is kind of a revisitation of this.
Correct. So in 2017, the council at that time approved a 425 agreement with Allegan Township to transfer parts of 4 different parcels from the city's jurisdiction to Allegan Township. On the screen, you can see a map that shows the 4 different parcels shaded in orange, green, blue, and pink. The red line is the current city boundary. The dashed purple line will become the new city boundary. So the land shaded pink, blue, green, and orange, working your way from the bottom of the map to the top, will be transferred from the city of Allegan to Allegan Township. This is done for, I'm gonna say the main reason this was done is because each of those parcels that are currently in Allegan Township was using that land for their own purposes to begin with. When council approved it in 2017, we sent the information to the township. However, they never were able to follow through on their end and adopt their resolution as well. This kind of fell by the wayside. What we have now is someone who wants to build a building that goes over both of our properties, and we said, we need to take care of this once and for all. So I've already talked, Steve's reached out to me. Once we approve it, he is gonna, carry the ball across the goal line at the township end. This does require a public hearing.
Thank you, Joel. Council, did you have any questions of staff? Okay. I will go ahead and open the public hearing at 7:17 regarding Resolution 21.26. I invite anyone up to make public comment. Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:18. Council, could I get a motion, please, to adopt Resolution 21.26?
Support. Or so moved. And then, I got you.
It has been moved and supported, though, in opposite ways. You got it done.
I didn't even realize what I just did. What are you talking about?
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have agenda item number 9, which is public comment. This is a time for public comment for items not on tonight's agenda. Anyone with public comment, I will invite you up to the podium. Please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to make your comment. Do we have any public comment tonight? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda items 11, which are reports from boards, commissions, and city offices. Under 11A, which is our city boards, commissions, and area agencies, we have 11A.1, which is a report from the Planning Commission September meeting. And actually, I'm going to defer to Councilmember Byrd for that report, please.
I thought you were going to do this.
Psych.
So, yes, we had a short and sweet meeting. We had a public hearing and then voted to recommend to council to approve special use permit for curbside pickup for timber dispensary, and also had a public hearing and voted to recommend to council to approve special use permit and a site plan for a new dispensary at the old Sweet Temptations building, which is actually the second special use permit for that site. So the first being the renovation of the existing building, which still has to be fulfilled, and then they're going to build a new building on that site, which we approved the site plan for. And that was it.
Yes. After they renovate the entire thing and then have to tear it
Knock
down
it down.
to
Mhm.
rebuild a new building. But, hey, it's a new building, so thank you, Roger. 11A.2, we have a report from Public Spaces Commission, their September meeting. Teresa.
I'm going to ask Joel or Parker if they would please report on that. I was
So-
absent.
Okay, thank you, Teresa.
Most definitely, Teresa, no problem. The Public Spaces did their annual tour of parks. We got to 4 of them before it started pouring down rain on us. So then we retreated back to City Council or the City Council chambers, where through the power of Google Maps and pictometry, we were able to look at the other parks and talk about, needs and desires for each of them. Following council's direction in October, so their upcoming meeting, they will be doing their strategic planning. So you'll have information on where they'd like to go over the next couple of years, for your strategic planning sessions that start in January.
Great, thank you. Next, we have 11A.3, which is a report from the Downtown Development Authority and their September meeting. I will go ahead and report on that one. So Parker was in attendance at the meeting and discussed our upcoming winter activities. So we talked about Festive Fridays and New Year's Eve. Those are moving forward and plan to occur this year. We did have a couple commission members who were really adamant about getting a countdown clock because it is difficult having gone to have a synchronized countdown. So I know that they are looking into different possibilities for that, whether it's a projection on the back of a wall or to actually purchase a countdown clock. The other thing we discussed was downtown events for 2022. And we did discuss having Bridge Fest again, but kind of continuing on that forward motion, bring back maybe some of the things that some of us locals remember from Bridge Fest in the past, but possibly getting a volunteer group together to move in that direction so we can get some community input for what they'd like to see. Fork in the Road is coming back for an even longer period of time. I know having attended, it was extremely successful, and so we're looking forward to having that again. And then there is some movement also to increase sidewalk sales and have a little bit more festivities around those. Phil Siegler also talked about the Jazz Festival. We're just kind of throwing around some different ideas, and back years ago, there was a jazz festival that was held and with different venues in town. So that was something he thought was really cool and would like to see come back if possible. We also talked about the streetscape update, and we will be having public meetings regarding input from the community on moving forward with the design. And I think that's pretty much it. Anything else, Parker? Did I miss anything?
Nothing more.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have 11A.5, which is a report from the Historic District Commission September meeting. Rachel? Oh, airport. I missed you, Peter. Report from the Airport Advisory.
Yeah. Well, we met, when we were meeting, they were doing some work on the new hangar that was there, so we discussed that a bit. We went through the improvement plan. There was some rearranging in the capital improvement plan to optimize the funds that were available, considering the cost of lumber and wood. We talked about the taxi lane improvement that completed on schedule and everything's back to normal, that they can use the taxi lanes. We discussed once again a courtesy car at the airport, but there's some concerns, of course, with insurance and liability, so that's still not going anywhere yet. And we discussed that there was the flag fly-in on 9/11, that was happening, and just generally discussed a little bit more about the hangar that was being built. And also, I think we had one short discussion about the dedication rock that was near where that hangar is and if we're going to move it somewhere else. And that's about it.
Thanks, Peter. I know I've actually been contacted a couple times about what's happening out at the airport, so kind of exciting for people to see some new construction out there. 11A.5, now we get to Rachel for the report from Historic District Commission.
I don't remember the date, but I believe it was the beginning of September after Labor Day that HDC met. We had one application, I want to say 108 Delano, for vinyl windows. That was the application. The commission approved it, and the commission discussed the spreadsheet that we've been giving to go through each property, deciding what's pivotal or has some sort of historical significance over others. Jason Raymaker was the only individual that actually met up and gave his opinions on that. Then I discussed my discussion with Councilmember Redding about the home on Marshall that was given, a stop work order because they didn't follow the appropriate channels to start work. And then that segued into 11A.6, which is a recommendation from the HDC to have staff look into disestablishing the commission and the districts. And that was unanimously approved through HDC.
Thank you, Rachel.
Are there any questions? No?
All right. Well, now we'll get to 11A.6, which is a recommendation from the Historic District Commission to City Council to direct staff into looking into de-establishing Allegan's historic districts and the Historic District Commission. Staff, do you have a report?
Sure. So as discussed recently, the HDC passed a motion unanimously to request that City Council direct city staff to looking into disestablishing the Historic District Commission and the historic districts that we have in the city. For some background for City Council, there are 420 properties in the historic district. When the survey was first done, based on the information we have, 17% at that time were considered historically significant or pivotal properties. The biggest district is the Pritchard's Overlook District, as you can see on that map on the screen. There's 210 properties there. 14 of the 210 properties in that area are considered historically significant or pivotal. That's 7%. The Old Town, so the entire downtown, has 95 parcels. 11 of the buildings down here were considered historically significant or pivotal, at that time. So,
From the 80s.
yeah, I believe the survey was in 84, I believe.
Thank you, Joel.
And since staff reports to the city council, not to the individual boards or commissions, I said, okay, it will be on the next agenda and we'll let council discuss it.
And this is a discussion that I believe has kind of churned along while Dave was on HDC. I don't know, maybe while you were on, but maybe it was bubbling or simmering under the surface. You could speak on that if you want to, but, so it came to a head.
Okay. So, Council, I know we discussed this a bit at study session. Do we have any questions regarding this for Joel? I would think Rachel could probably also answer that since she was there. Roger?
So I just to clarify, Rachel, you said that it was unanimous. So was the sentiment of the group that HDC should be, or the HDC should be completely dissolved, or was there that it needs to be, as it exists, done away with, but something put in its place, like to say, like to have a no demolition order in those districts, or was there anything, or that it should just be done away with?
So my interpretation of the conversation is that it would need to be done away with completely. And not saying that something couldn't be, created or recreated, but in this process currently, well, hypothetically, if we're looking into different ways of doing this, how are we enforcing the rules that are current? And so this house or this homeowner has to follow these rules, and oops, so sorry, it was during the time that council and the HDC were revamping it, and the next group of people don't have to have those same rules applied. That's my take on it.
Gotcha. Thanks, that's helpful.
I will say with Jason going through, it's 420 properties on a spreadsheet, and saying, yes, I think that's historically significant. Oh, I'll go along with what they thought in the 80s. No, I don't think that that's historically significant right now. As I said during the pre-session, I don't want to make that decision on somebody's home or somebody's future home.
But it struck me in our discussion is when whoever brought up 50 years, the 50-year mark is 72. In 1980, it was 1934, right, which seems historically significant, but 1972, not so much.
So there were homes that were put into the HDCs that were not within the 50 years.
Yeah, I think we should probably clarify the 50-year thing. That's the mark-off for when a home could be declared historically significant. It doesn't mean it's historically significant. It's not like an automatic thing. It needs to be declared historically significant, and it qualifies at 50 years.
But I believe the one across from your son and daughter-in-law, forgive me if I have that incorrect, is included in the HDC directly across, and it was built in the 50s.
Yep.
And if the HDC is created in the 80s, that is not 50 years.
There's a home on Marshall Street. It's an A-frame home, and so every home has like a description of here's the history of it, and here's kind of why we included it. That one, the reason for including it is that it's interesting architecture. It's flat out the only reason. Just an A-frame home, and it looks interesting. And I think to the point that was made earlier, the goal was to create a blanket for that district so that when you drove through Marshall Street, it was a presentation of the entrance into Allegan. And
Boulevard.
talking to residents, that was a immaculate is how it was described neighborhood. And you can go through pictures, even in the historic district application, you can see old pictures from Marshall Street. It was really impressive, which kind of brings us to today where it's just not. The real results of the historic district just aren't there. We haven't been able to preserve these neighborhoods. And talking to residents in the neighborhood, it's actually undermining improvements to homes. I mean, the letter that the city sent a stop work to, that home was melting into the ground. It had a tarp on the roof. It's still got a broken garage door. I mean, it's just plastic over the top. And somebody came in to make improvements. I mean, I complimented them when I walked by. I said, hey, great job on that house. It looks a lot nicer. It's really made a big improvement to the neighborhood. So the idea that we would send a cease and desist letter, we would put up a barrier to them, and luckily they didn't have a contractor. Could you imagine if they'd had a contractor at this time, then the contractor pulls out, now when are you gonna get another contractor? And it would have spent all winter exposed to the elements. So it's just, the reality of the situation is we need to stop the bleeding. We need to stop the negative impact that it's having on, at least on my neighborhood. It's 100% clear to me.
To Dave's point, when he's saying, why would we hinder somebody making improvements to their home by not following, this grandiose book here, I'm of the mindset, well, we can't just pick and choose who we're going to allow to follow the rules and not follow the rules. So that's where I'm in, okay. Let's get rid of it if it's not working. We know that. I mean, it's not working. Is that because we're failing as a commission or previous commissions? Could it be better in the future? I don't know, but it's not working. It's evident. It's not just this last 4 years. It's not, this is years and years of picking and choosing who is going to play by the rules and who's not.
And it seems like the thing that we were trying to preserve has passed. I mean, in a large portion, not all, but a lot of it.
You have whole city blocks that are missing their buildings, and that happened after this was created, so
Yeah.
we're not preserving much.
Yeah.
Council, I'm actually going to open this up to anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this. Okay. Come on up, Mike.
Mike Manning, 155 10th Street.
Okay.
Okay. Historical district was created to take case by case and protect us from destroying or demolishing any other historical properties. Okay, in answer to your question on that. I have concerns, and I've researched it quite in depth, and I think it appears that several people on that committee, I would say to staff, how many people stand to gain personally on there for rentals, or people who tried to disband it years ago who are selling their home to another person on the council or their parents, indeed. It appears that there's personal gains on these votes to disband this. It's been around for 36 years, 1985, I think it was. I could be wrong. And so why not? Why at an 11th hour? Who stands to benefit from it? I would request that staff look into that and check who's on the council and who's been proposing to disband it. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Are there any further public comments on this agenda item? Okay. Seeing none, council, we can resume our discussion. Dave, you had something?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting argument that people would benefit from removing the historic district, because there's 420 homes in the historic district, and if 420 homes would benefit by removing the restrictions, it seems like a big win. I think the right step forward for step one is to remove those restrictions. I think step two is, what can we do to help homeowners in our historic districts do a better job of preserving their homes, which I think, if there's real support for that, we need to have some sort of avenue for the community to come together and have that discussion. But I think when we look at the realities of it, it's just not working, like Councilmember McKenzie said, and I think we need to take bold action, step one.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Are there any other comments, Teresa?
So I do think the way we have it is not working. I've said that for years, that I own a home and someone's going to tell me that I can't do something to it. I have said that for years, but yet, because you've lived there all your life and you have the right last name, you can do it. I have said that in our community for years. But are we, and I have a question just to be clarified, are we talking about doing away with the historic commission, the committee itself right now? Or just limiting them to not saying yay or nay? Or,
My understanding, there's an ordinance. I mean, so we can't just sit back and not accept applications and come up with
Okay.
decisions. So that's where, I mean, we're appointing someone tonight to the HDC, so that clearly says to me we're still going to be operating the way, this is a direction for staff to look into.
Well, that's what the agenda
Possibility.
says, is a recommendation from HDC to City Council to direct staff into looking into disestablishing Allegan's historic districts and the Historic District Commission. We're not, I mean, that's what the ask is. It's just for staff, directing staff to look into disestablishing. It's still gonna be here tomorrow,
And
if
they-
that is
yeah.
what the motion is.
They could come back and say, this is not the direction that we want to take. We want to do more of, decrease the amount or whatever, what have you. But the motion from HGC was for city council to direct staff to look into it. Peter?
Teresa, so it's directing staff to look into it because there's certain rules on the establishment of the district and how you would dissolve or change the district. So the staff has to go find what that is and advise us what our options are even to do. We can't just wave the wand and be like, the historic district's gone tomorrow.
Right.
There's a process, and we need to get informed on the process. And
I understand
so-
that. My question was, are we looking to dissolve both of them, I guess, is the committee and the social district area?
Social district, yeah, we're getting rid of that.
No,
Historic
we're going to
district,
need
I'm
the
sorry.
social district if
Yeah,
this,
we
if
will
this
need
comes to
that,
fruition.
definitely. The historic district
I think what I'm
is what I
reading,
was talking about.
I understand.
And if they, when they do this, if they could look at them separately,
Look at what separately? The two,
committee and the historic
Districts.
district, yes.
yeah, I believe that's how it's worded. I think that's.
Okay, I just didn't want them
Part and
to
parcel.
think, because we're changing this, we need to get rid of this, or,
So I see this as looking into changing M1 to R3. There's a discussion at a committee level, staff looks into it, and then it comes to council. If it's feasible, if everybody agrees that it's going to benefit the majority and not just the few, then why wouldn't we?
Right.
That's how I see this.
okay,
Does that answer your question, Teresa?
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion regarding this agenda item, council?
I have I guess maybe it's a skewed view of this, but the notion is that having these districts and these rules to preserve these homes actually is a personal gain for the individuals who own in a historic district. Yes, it increases property values, it restores the neighborhoods, preserves the neighborhoods, that sort of stuff. So by doing that for 420 folks, aren't we alienating the other 1,200 or 1,300 in the community?
Or are we placing undue hardship on 420 homes?
Well, that we know for sure.
And not requiring the other 1,200 to
Right,
follow any,
exactly.
you know.
Can sell their homes willingly, freely, without any kind of encumbrance.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we need to do next is, as a council, decide whether this is something we want to recommend to staff to look into. So if that is, then could I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. Council, is there any further discussion? Okay, and just to reiterate, this is, we are directing staff to look into establishing these two, and, well, the commission as well as the historic districts. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Under agenda item 11A.7, we have a recommendation from the Planning Commission to approve a special use permit amendment for 133 Marshall Street to allow curbside pickup for Eden's LLC Timber Cannabis Company. Staff?
Sure. All marijuana establishments have to receive a special use permit that starts at being reviewed by the Planning Commission, and then they send a recommendation up to City Council for your final approval. So you've already approved the special use permit for Timber Cannabis. They rehabbed the old laundromat, the completed pictures on the screen behind you. They now are in front of the City Council asking to amend their special use permit to allow for curbside pickup. So people would either order online or call in, take care of the payment that way. They would pull up, they would be, you know, they would call the receptionist on the inside and say, "Hi, I'm in parking space 3. I'm Bob, I'm here to pick it up," and they would, you know, come out and, you know, deliver at the curb, because there are still people who are not comfortable going inside buildings right now.
And they can't accommodate a drive-through.
And they cannot accommodate a drive-through, that is correct. So this was reviewed at the Planning Commission level. The Planning Commission, you know, Councilmember Byrd and Mayor Anders sits on that. They were comfortable with this amendment. It passed unanimously at the Planning Commission level as a recommendation to City Council.
Thank you, Joel. And just for council's information, this doesn't change anything with their licensing. It's essentially they need to change a couple parking spaces, but they have sufficient parking already. They were over the required parking spaces. So are there any questions at all for staff?
Does the curb go all the way up to Marshall Street? Like you can just pull up and,
My understanding is it's in the front of the building. They'll
I
dedicate.
know, but when
okay.
we're doing this, how are we directing that? It has to be the parking spaces directly in front of the laundromat, or where this will take place? Like you're saying, curbside pickup. Curbside is at the curbside, meaning at Marshall Street curbside.
I think
where
that's
it's
just semantics, yeah.
You gotta specify. Semantics is all about
Well-
ordinances and laws. That's what we're talking about here.
And that's, I mean, they're gonna determine the parking where they're gonna come out of the building, I would assume, correct, Joel?
It's got to be on their property, correct? It can't be on a public road.
I don't think it could, but this,
Yeah.
it's nice to know, because we make them do the whole plan of the building, and we look at where all their stuff's located, and the venting, and the doorways, and their doorways are supposed to remain closed most of the time in our ordinance. I don't really see the need for this personally. I don't. It's, when we were discussing, I believe back when I was on planning, it was, all the transactions were always supposed to take place inside a building was kind of what we were understanding of Laura.
Yeah,
I was
that
trying to
was-
find Laura to see
that
if
was
they changed that.
Prior to COVID. I mean, realistically, a lot has changed in terms of people's comfortableness going inside places, whether it's food, groceries, or marijuana.
Any other questions, council?
Do we, and off the top of my head, I cannot remember, Justin Domini, Green Door.
So just very quickly to answer Peter's question. In the application that the Planning Commission approved and was, I believe, part of your packet, because I'm looking, I believe so, it does say only 3 of these spaces are proposed to be converted to curbside parking spots, leaving plenty to continue. So if I look at that screen right there, I do not believe there's any parking spaces adjacent to said sidewalk or public right-of-way. So it is the 3 that are internal against the building And I think, the words in the application are pretty clear that if they try to do something goofy and have, bicycle pickup along a sidewalk, we have standing to say that's not what was approved.
That was,
Sorry, Rachel, for
that
cutting
was
you
my
off.
understanding, and I was frantically looking through, so thank you, Joe, for finding that, because that was my understanding at planning.
Yeah, and Lori Costello, our zoning guru, didn't see any issues at all with this.
I mean, a bicycle doesn't really provide you the cover that a vehicle does, let's be honest. If you're trying to hide of what you're buying or not be seen, you're going to be seen on a bicycle. My question
Go ahead, Rachel.
is, is Green Door doing a drive-through? Do we know any of this, or are we going to have to approach these things
No.
each time?
None of them
Not
are
in
doing
their state
drive-throughs. The 4 that have been approved did not have drive-throughs as part of their stuff, correct?
Oh, that's dumb. That's interesting.
Okay, if there are no further questions from staff, I'll go ahead and open this up to the public as well. If there's any public comment regarding this agenda item, 11A.7, feel free to approach the podium. Okay, seeing none. Council, could I get a motion, please, to approve the special use permit?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. 5-2. Next up, we have 11A.8, which is a recommendation from the Planning Commission to approve a special use permit for 919 Marshall Street for an 1,800 square foot marijuana retail store. Staff?
Sure. Very quickly, this is a special use permit for 919 Marshall. You will recall that you approved recently, within the past year, a special use permit for this exact property. It's the old Sweet Temptations ice cream shop. At that time, they were going to make some minor modifications to that building and get it up and running. During that time, or since that time, they have now decided they would like to sell this property to a different entity to operate this marijuana establishment. That is perfectly legal under state law. It's perfectly legal under our law. However, they need to move forward and complete the first special use permit, get a certificate of occupancy from PCI. Then they're going to tear that down, and since council will have approved this special use permit, they could start construction on this structure immediately. In your packet is the report, as well as all the site plans, so you can see the way it would work. I would say this is a much more attractive building than the old Sweet Temptations ice cream shop is. But this is not a, new location. This is one you've dealt with before. Any questions from staff? And I believe the architect's in the back of the room, if you have questions for the architect.
Council, are there any questions? Okay. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and open the floor for public comment. Mike?
Mike Manning, 155 Town Street. Just to be clear, so I'm not confused, this is the kids' ice cream place we're talking about? Used to be Brown Derby, if those remember that?
Aloha back in the day.
Huh?
Minnie's Aloha.
Minnie's
Derby.
Aloha in the
You
day,
probably
Derby,
remember
Brown
Derby.
Derby, more my time. So that's a kids' ice cream place that we're turning into a marijuana place. How many marijuana buildings do we have in the city? Joel, do you know?
We have one operational.
Yeah, there's one operational and 3 other ones that have been approved, so there'll be.
3 approved, so there'll be 4 in the city.
There'll be
How
4
many-
that will be approved if this is approved this
How many
evening.
kids' ice cream places are there in the city?
2
2?
that I'm aware of. I have 2. I have
Okay.
Sweet Temptations, which was at this location. They sold this property to the,
To be fair, I don't have kids and I still eat ice cream, so
And
it's
you
not.
eat ice cream, okay.
It's just,
Well,
it's not
you're a
just for
kid.
children.
You're a
They're-
kid at heart, so it's
Sure, I
not just for
suppose,
kids.
but it's
Good
for anybody
you.
who likes ice cream.
Good for you. Okay, I was just curious. Thank you, Joel. That answers my question. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Okay, council. So next up, I will be entertaining a motion to approve the special use permit for 919 Marshall Street.
So moved.
It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion, council? No? Is it Chris? I'm sorry, okay. Could you just repeat, is this the 25th location for Loom? This will be the 25th, just depending on construction?
When they build it, there are 24 operating locations currently right now. So there's a variety of other ones that are being constructed at the moment. We hope this is the number 25.
Okay, thank you. So a pretty established company. So we do have a motion with support. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have 11B, which is our Finance Department. We have 11B.1, which is a request to approve accounts payable and payroll. Teresa?
We have accounts payable in the amount of $774,077.34. Payroll in the amount of $195,685.51, for a total of $969,762.85. Motion to approve.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 11B.2, which is a request to approve various procedures and an amendment to the fee schedule related to wedding services at City Hall. Joel?
Yeah, very quickly, what we're looking to do here is streamline our procedures on how we handle weddings. I would say over the past 3 years, it's become a little more streamlined each time we've looked at it. What we'd like to do specifically here is set a fee of $25 and some process steps that people have to go if they are looking to get married by the mayor, you know, as part of her or his official duties. Any questions for staff? Okay, I picked the 25. I have no idea what you pay for a wedding nowadays.
You pay more to get out of it, I think.
JP's pretty cheap. That's where I got married, so
Okay.
courthouse always works.
And that's only 20.
Yeah.
For $5 more than the county. I am budget focused here, people.
Newer building, so we have to.
Yeah. So I will say that I've done a couple weddings in the last month or so and had just run across that actually we are required to have a fee and we were just taking donations. So we'll be establishing this fee and yeah. Are there any questions? Further questions?
Will that fee still be used as a donation? Like when?
No, it has to go to the general fund.
Okay, so not towards fireworks or anything like that, like, okay.
Like we need to have fireworks after the ceremony, or? Oh, okay.
Okay.
We had sparklers for the people.
Any comment from the public regarding weddings at City Hall? Okay. So if there's no further discussion, could I get a motion, please, to approve the amendment to the fee schedule?
I do.
I support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 11C, which is our police department. Under 11C.1, we have declare the current drone surplus and direct city staff to sell said drone. Staff? Do you want Jada?
I would take this one. It's
Okay.
very quick. As council's aware, we recently received a new drone as part of a grant we got from Gun Lake Tribe. This means our existing drone we have is probably a higher capacity than what we really need for our marketing. We don't need 2 drones at that, level. So we're recommending that we declare this surplus and sell it now while it still has value. It's a common practice for council to declare our property surplus when we no longer need it.
Thank you, Joel. Are there any questions? Or Chief Gibson, did you have anything to add?
I do not, thank you.
Okay. Any questions for staff, council? No? Seeing none, could I get a motion, please, to declare the current drone as surplus and direct staff to sell?
So moved.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Under 11D, our water utilities, we have 11D.1, which is to approve a purchase order for Midwest washing equipment in the amount of $7,541. Doug?
Yes, this is to purchase a soft wash system, kind of opposite of a pressure wash system. This uses high volume, low pressure, and usually some type of releasing agent for washing. This was identified in capital expenditures for the water plant to purchase this year. It's to, wash the on-site water tanks at the water plant. There's the iron removal tanks that stick out the back. We've used pressure washers in the past, and it affects the painted surfaces, either taking the paint off, or, I don't know if any of you have experienced it, when you use a pressure washer and use the real concentrated nozzle, you can pretty much etch the surface. And I'll just say some operators have wrote their name on the tanks, and as much as you can go over it, the name is still there. So the soft wash eliminates the high pressure that etches the surface and uses some type of releasing agent to remove the dirt off of there. It's being purchased by the water utilities water plant specifically, but is planned, expected that it can be used throughout the city. If the DPW needs it for washing, whether it's park benches or the splash pad, it's available for all city departments, so.
Thank you, Doug. Any questions at all for Doug regarding this agenda item?
Could
Dave?
this be used to power wash the boardwalk beyond Water Street?
It would not power wash it, but yes, it could be, with the right releasing agent, yes, it could be, used for washing boardwalks or sidewalks or.
That seems like a good use.
Would it be efficient in that manner?
I would assume so, yes. Again, with the right releasing agent, cleaning agent, I've used power washers too, and if you got to use the little concentrated nozzle, it doesn't go real fast
Yeah.
because it's a small stream, so.
Yeah.
The issue on that, Roger, is you're adjacent to the river and you're using high volumes with the detergents, and do you want that going in the river?
Yeah, that's a
Or do you
good
just
point.
want to use plain water and one of the disc operators just to clean off the boards? I prefer just the plain
That's a good
water and
point.
not have the detergent going into the river.
The other thing, this doesn't look portable.
It is
'cause
skid
it's
mounted.
skid-mounted, yeah.
You would need a forklift, which we have a forklift at the water plant, and at the wastewater plant, and the DPW has a forklift. It will fit right in the back of a pickup truck.
Okay, so then, I'm assuming it uses water, hello? So where would the water come, if we did take it to the boardwalk?
The skid has water tanks and soap tanks, built right on it.
Oh, okay, so the tanks are there, okay.
Yep.
Okay, I can't see them from here.
I
so-
think they're on the back side of the hoses.
Okay, all right. So it could be used portable is what
Yes,
I'm
yep.
getting at, okay.
Council, any other questions for staff?
Yes, it was identified in the water plant capital items, and $8,000 was budgeted in the capital expenses for this year.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug.
Should we consider adding an amendment to the motion to use this to wash the boardwalk behind Water Street? Is that too direct, or?
Other Doug, are your kitchen woods being put down up here? Okay, just checking.
Maybe that's too much. We don't need to do that. I think,
That would make it really wordy.
The other Doug's writing it down, I see.
I feel like the intention is clear, I feel like I've made my point at this point, right? Okay.
Okay, so if there's no further questions, could I get a motion, please, to approve this purchase order?
So move.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. 11D.2 is approve a purchase order for a lockmaster in the amount of $15,250. Doug?
Yes, this is from Lockmaster, who I would say provides majority of our security equipment throughout the city and at the water utilities. The purchase order is actually comprised of 3 elements: security upgrade at the water plant, new security equipment and installation at the resource recovery facility, and then replacement of a door frame at the resource recovery facility. At the water plant, there is a current security system. It's 11 years old. It's outdated. I'll say it's pretty much non-functional. The company no longer supports it, the software. We can't use it. In addition to that, when the city did change over to their phone systems, the old phone system needs a dial-up phone system, cannot use the voice over internet protocol. I don't completely understand it, but that's what I'm told. So we have an alarm system that half works, but is not able to call anybody at this point. Lockmaster's, proposal on that is to upgrade it to a new system. It's a online system, but it monitors, I believe it's 3 doors and the gate, so anytime it's accessed, it can send a notification. During the day, it can be deactivated, so it still tracks openings and closings, but doesn't send notification to, city staff. A similar system would be installed at the resource recovery facility. That one, it costs more because there's nothing installed currently, so Lockmaster has to run the wiring, put all of the equipment on the doors, whereas he's reusing the wiring at the water plant. Both systems would work together, so, a notification from the water plant, the resource recovery plant, could be sent to myself or any of the staff members. We can access the information online. It can be accessed from anyone that has access username, password to get into the system. This system does require whether it's a monthly or annual fee, however we want to pay it, for monitoring. That was outlined in the memo for this system.
Thanks, Doug. Could you just clarify for me? You had mentioned a budget adjustment, but that was just for the annual or the monthly fee,
Yes.
if necessary. Is this a budgeted
This is
item?
still falling within what we have budgeted for asset replacements, repairs. At the water plant, what you're referring to was replacement of the distribution pumps. That was a very large expenditure. For the water plant, it's $3,000 for this, the security upgrade. That is not going to put that line item over budget at this point.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for staff, council? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion, please?
So moved.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, say no. Motion carries. And last one for you, Doug, we've got 11D.3, which is approve a purchase order for Michigan Specialty Coatings in the amount of $6,204.24.
Yep, the MIAX room, or where we make the chlorine and add the chlorine into the water system, the floor is degrading. There's spots that the floor coating, the paint has peeled off, and the concrete is actually spalling or cracking and coming up. We want to repair it before it gets in, worse condition. Zach, our water plant manager, asked 3 different companies for quotes. One of them refused to quote. The other 2 gave quotes. We are actually recommending to go with the higher quote because their recommendation is to fix the cracks and the spalling of the concrete in a better manner than what the other company is.
Thank you, Doug. Any questions, council? Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Next, we have 11E, Public Works. Doug? Come on up. Under 11E.1, we have approve a purchase order for Kronk Services in the amount of $8,000.
As you recall, OEI backed out of their contract. The city did, in fact, we advertised for bids on 2 separate occasions, received none. In the meantime, had conversations with Mr. Westling, Mr. Kronk, and 2 other agencies in the city. The only one that would give us the price to do the work for the balance of the year was Mr. Kronk. So we suggest that you award the contract to him. We will be advertising for bids a 3rd time, so.
Okay, and this is for the cemetery, correct?
Correct, for the
Okay.
cemetery.
Council, are there any questions for Doug? Rachel?
Kronk is who does the sidewalks in the wintertime? Yes, downtown? Okay, so we've had them for a few years.
Yeah, they do that, and they also help us with blight abatement. We do quite a few blight abatement projects in the city.
And along that same line, the contract for the winter maintenance does expire in the spring, so we'll be rebidding that out. Should be over the winter months.
Yes.
Thank you, Rachel.
And
Oh,
Doug,
go
this is only for October, November, and fall cleanup then? It's
for-
not going to be into the next spring, or it is?
That's correct. It's only gonna be for this fall.
Okay.
October, we don't anticipate using November mowing, but you never know how the weather will be. So it's in there anyway.
I know you get one bid and you don't have much choice, but is 8,000 a reasonable price? Is that in the ballpark of what you would have expected?
Yes, because the current contract had 7,400 for those same months,
So-
for the same number of mowings
so
in the
that's-
fall. So
It's close.
yeah.
Any other questions, council? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion to approve the purchase order for Kronk Services?
So moved.
Or,
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 11E.2, which is to approve a purchase order for highway maintenance and construction company in the amount of $26,250. Doug?
Thank you. Allegan County Road Commission extended the opportunity for the city to do crack repair on a few of our streets. It's just a preventive maintenance, 3 to 5 year life expectancy. The list we chose is Trowbridge, which was, I understand, recently resurfaced. Then I added Cutler, 2 blocks of Cutler, then J.C. Park, and if they still have available material, we'll go right down that list. And these streets were selected from the Pacer rating 7 and 8 category. There are more, obviously, but we figured that we're in the downtown area, let's get them right here and include the park in it. And they said that they will be in Allegan this month, in fact, starting this week to do the work.
Wonderful. Our streets do need some work, so thank you. Are there any questions from council of Doug? No? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion, please, to approve the purchase order?
So moved? So moved, yeah.
This is a support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thanks,
Thank
Doug. Next up, we have 11F, City Manager and City Clerk. 11F.1 is a request to reschedule the Monday, October 11th City Council meeting to Tuesday, October 12th due to the Columbus Day observation holiday. Staff?
Your council rules and procedures requires you to hold your council meeting on the subsequent non-holiday when council meetings fall on holidays. So that would be Tuesday, October 12th.
Thank you, Joel. Are there any questions, council? I know we talked a little bit about this in study session. Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion to reschedule said meeting?
so moved.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Under Agenda Item 12, Board Appointments, we have Agenda Item 12A.1, which is an appointment of Stacy Todd to the Historic District Commission with a term set to expire on December 31st, 2024. Staff, do you have any report? I know, Council, you have her application?
Yeah.
Okay. I can say that Teresa and I have actually met with Stacy Todd and talked to her a little bit about this, and she is pretty passionate and has quite a bit of experience. So could I get a motion to appoint her to the HDC, please?
I'll make the motion. I'll also add that there's been several occasions where we could not review applications because we do not have a quorum for the HDC. So this is nice.
Wonderful.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Teresa. We're going to go backwards again. Your support?
Motion, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your motion. Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor of Stacy Todd's appointment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have agenda item number 13, which is communications from city manager, council, and mayor. Joel, did you have anything tonight?
There is a closed session, but the closed session should be rather quick, so that's all I have to offer tonight.
Okay. Any other staff? Doug's, anything? No? Ryan? Michaela? Parker?
No, thank you.
Nothing? Rachel?
Just a real quick shout out and observation to Tracy Perigo and her husband, Tim. I believe I witnessed them picking up litter and trash along, along the, I would call it the high school area, the sidewalk up there, the fence line that usually always collects. So I don't know if that was just your fun favorite pastime, but I saw it. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, my comment will be, I did that on behalf of the Lions Club. I am a Lion, so if you would like more information, we would love younger people, because believe it or not, I am one of the youngest Lions, which kind of is scary. So we would love new members. It's very, it's real low-key, believe me.
Awesome. Thanks, Tracy, for picking up litter and for that Lions recruitment statement. Teresa?
I don't have anything tonight. Thank you.
Roger?
I don't think I have anything.
Welcome to being a downtown resident.
Thank you. Yes, I'm
Exciting.
very excited to be a downtown resident again. Yes,
Wonderful.
very happy.
Well,
Yeah, I know, I know, but it is a little difficult with noise in different times.
Peter, anything from you tonight?
Nothing.
Dave?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, and I have nothing either. So next we'll move on to agenda item number 14, which is closed session. Under 14A, we have a request to go into closed session to discuss a periodic personnel evaluation of a public employee per MCL section 15.268A. Could I get a motion to go into closed session, please?
so moved.
Could I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Redding,
Yes.
Councilmember
Everyone could please vacate.